everybody. Welcome back to Indigenous Let's Talk Water, Season 3, Episode 2. And I'm your host, Makasa Looking Horse. And a bit about myself. I work for the Indigenous Let's Talk Water Project, and I'm the youth coordinator for the past 3 years. And I'm also a McMaster University student in Level 4 Indigenous Studies at McMaster University. I'm a whole lot of other things. I am a lead auntie for the Ohologo Youth Rites of Passage for the last 4 years. Also, I have been a Sundance leader for like maybe 7 years. And I'm a lot of other things, but I can't really cover everything. But so that's a little bit about me. And today's episode, as you know, is about Indigenous astronomy, decolonizing the cosmos and connections to the water. We're going to hear from Haudenosaunee and Lakota star knowledge. We're very excited to hear from star knowledge by Indigenous knowledge keeper, Chief Arvol Looking Horse, who's also my dad. We're joined by Sasha Doxtator and Robert Cockcroft, who will also share their decolonizing approach to astronomy. But first, we always start a music video or music. So we're going to be playing the White Buffalo Calf song in honor of Chief Arvol Looking Horse. So let's hear it. We can't hear anything, Catherine. So welcome back. That was White Buffalo Calf Song by Pipestone Creek Singers. And so our first guest, or actually, so our first guest is Chief Arvol Looking Horse, the keeper of the White Buffalo Calf Pipe, and he's also my father, and he currently resides in South Dakota. Arvol is a 19th generation keeper of the White Buffalo Calf Pipe, meaning around 1900 years ago, a woman gave him the White Buffalo Calf Pipe to his ancestors and the White Buffalo Calf woman herself, from the White Buffalo Calf woman herself. Before we get started talking about astronomy, we've had some good news from President Joe Biden, who has recently canceled the Keystone Access Pipeline, and my people have fought and sustained the resistance of the pipeline since 2015. There's so much more work that needs to be done on the Dakota Access Pipeline, but that is as a very good success, and we are so happy that that he canceled the Keystone Access Pipeline. So these are some photos of my father, who was a big part in that, and he was there for all of the Standing Rock, for all those months that was happening at Standing Rock. So back to my father, and today we're going to be talking about astronomy. And we're going to, firstly, we think we're going to be talking about the origin. So Dad, can you tell us what you would like to share about Indigenous astronomy first?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to say a big welcome to each and every one of you out there. In our tradition, we always have to speak our language first. Amitakepi, ampetikileche, na ya hetuchi onake, unglakapi, tayetu kileche, na che. Uchakpi wakankile, unchetaha, ya unglakapi. Na wotake makak na chukoyapi. Na chishya ke takuche na umpi na sheche taki na iwang lakapi ha na you can watch ante watch there na my friends and relatives, we as First Nations Indigenous people, no, we have our tradition and our culture as of today, and I speak to you from my language, which is sacred language, and I'm a very fluent Lakota speaker, and all my life I've been in ceremonies that Makasa talked about. So today I'm going to speak about the star knowledge, but I want to remind the people that we can only talk about the star knowledge so far, and some of the star knowledge stories are so sacred that we don't even talk about it. So those are things that we have to put through ceremony. And all my life, I am a spiritual leader, a medicine person for our people, Dakota Nakoto Yate, or known as the Great Sioux Nation. But I grew up with elders before our, that people say, before Indian people recognized worldwide, 1978, the Freedom of Religion Act, and recently the at Standing Rock. And we have met a lot of good people, a lot of good leaders. As my position, we met a lot of good people like that help us maintain our place in the world. And I'd like to say that when I was very young, my my elders, they talked about the times before or after Wounded Knee in early 1900s, and a lot of things that we can't talk about, or we can't even talk about our position, like keeper of the sacred pipe, or the name Looking Horse. Was a very dangerous time, and we know a lot of history. I mean, we have our own history, and the books they're written. A lot of times we're not the people. They write many books about our people, but for me, I grew up in ceremony, and I knew the star knowledge through a ceremonial perspective. Kacha makaka neche, kacha koyapi. Mukhache tunkashla wa kantaka heche ona. Okea heche naki kileka. Mukha iya waka. Na iya wakankile duta. Na ichinu pa kaka hinka heche ona. Amani wichoni kile heche kagapi. Na napikas ka hika hechekshi. Na walk hanku ona makaka neche nahomi. In our first creation, we speak about the first spirit, the rock nation, the stone was red. The second spirit was Maniwichwani, the water of life. And then we came together and brought this energy called Woakam. Nachamitake Piache, Makakaleche Takueche, na ona Eche Oyate, Anke ha, na Wichoyake. Nuka hina Napetukale, Nakti. Now, Portugal Kitrapita ha, Nache, and Onakoki, Yake. From our sacred ceremonies, things that we share, the common people of the earth. That we know that there's one creator. We came from the star nation. And we get done with this life. We go back to the star nation called Wanaki Chanku. Back to Wichakbilka, the stars. And I would try to explain as much as I can, because when I think about our story, I think about our tradition, the sacred language that we speak. There's no fall language, but our mind has to be clear. Our thought has to be clear when we think about the star, because it's a spirit. We're honoring the sacred. So I was very young when the elders told me about the stars that we talked about. we do that ceremony, the Milky Way. Our people go back on that Milky Way. Everything, all nations, as far as I know, I been in ceremony, speak with a lot of good people about our way of life. And everything came from we know that the sun is a life giver. We have the sun dance. So in our tradition, I know that we as a spiritual people, we have to honor the Great Spirit. We always stay humble. And everything that we do in our ceremonies, we stand together in a circle. So being in that position to be a sacred pipe bundle keeper, I have no choice to know the history of our spiritual life, know the ceremonial songs that came with this life from the spirit. All of our ceremonies, they came from spirit. The creator, the great spirit, chooses people to help other people. Spiritual leader, medicine person. In our tradition, we start with nothing. But here we show the heart of Mother Earth. It's the Chasapa, the Black Hills of South Dakota. The
It's the
Black
one.
Hills from the
It's the
satellite
one.
view.
Sorry. It's the one picture before this one.
Yeah,
If you could go back, Catherine.
right there.
On the right side, it looks, that's Pahasapa, all of the Black Hills, and that it looks like a human heart. And when you fast forward it and all of the seasons change, it looks like it's beating. So
Yeah.
it's very literal of what he's saying.
So the heart from the satellite view looks like that. But long ago, no, when we go into ceremonies, we know that. But back then, there was no satellite, there's no helicopters, there's no airplanes. But this is all spiritual. They saw the Black Hills all the way into Crazy Horse's time. Crazy Horse talked about the tree of life. So you see that all the rivers and creeks and streams, it looks like a tree right there. In our Ihunk Ehan Wichayake stories of long ago, it talks about that life began and with the heartbeat, the spirit, a spirit that comes from the star nation. And we get done with this life, we go back on that Milky Way, back to the Wichakpi Wakam, the star knowledge. The sacred knowledge is in our, as we stand up, that walk, that energy all around the earth, mother. grandmother. So Grandmother Earth is a spirit, and we walk with this environment, giving tobacco to that medicine, that tree, the medicine to the root, to the plant. We respect all of everything that has a spirit. So the star knowledge back in early 1970, that was the first time the elders came together and said, we need to put something together. The most important is the star knowledge. Only certain people can talk about the star knowledge. So the people back then said, we have some elders that would like to share the star knowledge. So this is the blue book about the Black Hills. They say that all the sacred sites in the Black Hills and every place else is up there in the stars. So when we set up a teepee, then it's a vortex to the Great Spirit. The life, it's a circle, the teepee is in a circle. And we do these ceremonies clockwise motion. So if you look at the stars there, the star knowledge, we have all these ceremonies, springtime, summer, fall, and winter. And today, no, that
So
map there.
So the stars are like your calendar?
Yeah. So the elders, and especially my grandma, she still have that on the wall, like a line. She drew a line. I said, we're in this month. And she would tell the story about the winter camp, because every ceremony is a winter camp. And we have no choice, because in our tradition, no, the winter count is in our hair, our prehin. So we have to have a good mind, because that's where our sacred knowledge is. So I was talking about that walk, the energy. When you go to these sacred sites to do ceremony, you gotta stop 4 times. And when you camp, long time ago, and still do that today, we have songs. So when we camp, then you sing this. The first song is to lay that grass down, and then you'll set up the teepees to honor the sacred, to honor the star knowledge. But the circle is, there's no one person higher than the other. We all follow the 4 seasons of ceremony in our life. A lot of people don't know the star knowledge, or the winter count, but we still follow do the 4 seasons of ceremony in the springtime.
Do you want to tell us about Wind Cave?
Before Wind Cave is well, okay, I would start there. Wind Cave, and this is where If you look at the Black Hills, right in the heart is like a medicine wheel. And that's where our people live underneath the cave. And this is where they came out. This is very sacred to our people because this little cave here goes way down towards the Black Hills, the heart of the Black Hills. So it's like a spoke to the wagon wheel. Black Hills have many caves, but this is the main one that our people came out in our creation story. He ahani nila ke ha witraki. Yuka hechakshi maka kaneche wana. Oyate chuwichoni ka. Yuka heche wichashwa kaiche. Na heche yuku. Oyate no chagne. Heche maka kaneche ipi yuka heche. Da kuche che washte wala kapikte. They were living under the cave long ago. And they were living in good health. This man showed up from nowhere. And he told the people, if you go on top, if you follow me, I would show you a better place to live. Lots of berries and fruit. You're going to see plenty of food. And he led them out through this place called Wind Cave, the opening there. That's what I said in my Lakota language. These stories I hear so much in my Lakota language when I was very young. I still share that today because today it's a kind of different world, but our stories still the same. I grew up knowing these sacred sites inside the Wind Cave. People lived and the water was good. So after they came out of Wind Cave, the people thought they were having a good life. But there was a time when big dinosaurs were attacking the people. When they were having this young man that led them out of Wind Cave, he was very strong, and he said, "You'll be healthy like me, very strong." But after he brought him out, then he lived with them for a while. Then when they were having a hard time, he all of a sudden, in front of everybody's eyes, he became very small, and it became a spider. When he's getting small, he was laughing that he fooled the people. Then he became small and he walked away as a spider. So the story that they told me when I was very young, that they all say, be careful in our language that someday Iktomi is going to trick you. Watch every day So that was a story that we grew up with about Wind Cave. That was just one story. So I grew up after the Freedom of Religion Act. I told the people at Wind Cave, they should honor our people and have our creation story, or the story about our people coming out of Wind Cave. But nothing. So before that story, we did a ceremony there. We uh, we started out at a place called Harney Peak. Was named after a captain, and Harney Peak was tallest, uh, and that's where the they put the young people there to Humblecha, a vision quest, to communicate with the star nation and the Great Spirit. It really, because in our tradition, we have to honor that and ask for the Great Spirit to help us, guide us. So Harney Peak is a very sacred place. That's where everything started. A lot of our teaching. And today, we still do that ceremony every springtime, March 21st. We do a welcoming the thunder ceremony, because right after March 21st, or right about then, the thunder beings come back to bless our earth, mother, the environment, the plants, the medicine. So that's where you have Vision Quest. And then from there, we go clockwise towards where the um, Wind Cave is. But right beside Wind Cave is called, long ago, Kidney Springs. Kidney Springs is a place where we do a lot of healing ceremony, because we know that a lot of our, in the springtime, we get a lot of our medicine and the water. We every ceremony we hold that water, but the water that is so full of medicine that comes up, it's called hot springs. And then from there we go clockwise towards Inagaga, right west of hot springs. So that you see on that pictograph of that, or that picture of the Black Hills. We go clockwise. We do ceremonies throughout the whole 4 seasons. And then today, our brothers, the Cheyenne people, they still do that run. They go run all around the Black Hills. But in our star knowledge, right there, yeah, it's a circle. Long ago, before there was any trees, from that satellite view, this circle there was all red. and they call it the racetrack. The racetrack is all red because so many animals had a race. They ran so hard their feet was bloody. And so during that time, so the story is that when the buffalo is coming in ahead, a magpie flew in front of him and said, "No, I want it for the two-legged." So after the ceremony is over, or the race was over, then there was a two-legged that the animal nation, according to star knowledge, that they all have a place. And the star knowledge there that we do ceremonies, the two-legged, but we follow the four-legged too. But everything that has to do with the star nation, now that we as a two-legged would be the voice. So the story was handed down through many generations. And in the center where the medicine wheel, that's where our people used to live. And that's why it's like a medicine wheel, or some people call it looks like a wagon wheel, because there's a lot of caves that comes to the center. But if you look at all these sacred sites, like my grandmother used to, on that wall, she'd draw a line and tell the history of that Wachakbiwaka. And everything lines up with our Sundance. When the sun is the highest, and comes right in the middle, we have the opening of the Sundance. The door is on the east side and the west side. So everything that we do is clockwise. So inside that teepee, from that side view, in that teepee, that's where a child is born, according to star knowledge. Because when the child is born, and then that's where like the heartbeat, that chante balkan, the heart is like a tree, all the blood vessels, and that's where life. So going back to Crazy Horse's time, he had a dream, the way humble in the Black Hills, that all nations would unite under that sacred tree. But that sacred tree is like in our heart, or in the Black Hills, that all the rivers and creeks and streams, and that's the water that Maniwichoni. So Crazy Horse talked about his dream. He said, someday, said in my dream last night, I dreamt that someday that people would really have a hard time. And Crazy Horse never shed a tear. But as he told that story, he had tears in his eyes. He said, it was really bad. Even the children are being affected. And he said, way at the end, I saw a tree, that tree of life. All people are standing there in a circle. He said, the elder said that tree of life is sacred because it's but it's spiritual. And today we call we say that like standing rock that we the elders now talked about the water being affected, all nations. So over at Standing Rock, no, we like if you see all the people here talking about Choni, water is life. That came from our ancient stories. So the star, you go clockwise, not teepee. When a child is born, that baby might have days mixed up, stay up all night, sleep all day. The elders, they do a ceremony and like to the four, like a clockwise motion, and that baby would be put back in balance. So the baby would sleep at night. So in our tradition, the sacred language, there's no really fall language or we got to have a good mind. So the elders, they said that as a bundle keeper, you can't use fall language. So I never use fall language, or I don't carry a gun because in that teepee, if we're gonna do ceremonies, we gotta have a good mind. But we have societies, even the women's society, they have responsibilities. Like the women, they take care of that water, that teepee, the food, the medicine. So the men, they are the providers. But there's an equal respect in that teepee. So, like the animal nation that ran around the Black Hills, that we have equal respect between man and woman. There's no one person higher than the other.
Do you wanna tell us a little bit about the significance of the Milky Way?
So when we get done with this life, then a long time ago, like we don't. There was an argument that we had because over at the Keystone Pipeline or Standing Rock, they told us that a cemetery, you got to have a cross or a fence. That's a cemetery. But in our tradition, in those hills, long ago, we believe in the way of life. So when a person dies on the fourth day, they put them on a scaffold. On the fourth day, they wrap him. And on the fourth day, on that scaffold, they put all the belongings. Back then, they had people always traveling because we can't really live one place. Because if we live one place, no, it's not good. So the people is to travel. And so when a person dies, then even he used to kill a horse, their horse, and put it underneath the scaffold and burn it up in the hill. Those hills, that's where our ancestors are. But when we get done with this life, and there's life after death. So in our teachings, we call that Milky Way, Wanaki Chanku. It goes clockwise motion all around the earth and goes up in a circle. Then it goes right into the sun. So the sun is the life giver. And that's where how we have our ceremonies today. That every day, uh, that morning star, that's where life begins. Every morning is a great. We start with that star, the morning star. Or that's when people get up and they would communicate to the Great Spirit. But when after we get done with this life, we go back to the star and make that journey on its Milky Way. So a lot of our teachings is about the Uchakbioka and all these stars and the sun, the moon, everything is a reflection uh, on the vortex. So all these sacred sites is like a church to us. All these sacred sites are like that's where our education is. So this is a lot of things. No, we go back. We try to share as much as we can, but a lot of times there's some things that we can't even talk about because it has to be put through a ceremony. So, is there any questions like that?
Yeah, are there any questions from our viewers or from our guests? Sasha and Robert, do you have any questions or reflections with his talk? Or any of our viewers have any questions? We're able to answer them. If not, I can come back and ask him later because he'll be here um, until after our Robert and Sasha's presentation also. So thank you, Dad, for sharing your stories and your knowledge with us, and essentially saying like that we have a map in the sky and that it reflects our sacred sites on the ground, and even when you saying that we come from the earth, is and well just to think that earth is a planet and that we come from the middle of it or inside of it, is knowledge that isn't really known about. I think like there's not a lot of stories saying that we come from the earth, and then we travel up into the sky, into the Milky Way when we pass away, and going into the sky world or the place where we reside after life. So it's all, and we have a lot of other stories like the Seven Sisters, and that also align with Haudenosaunee knowledge with the seven dancers, with the seven brother dancers and seven sisters. So he didn't get to really touch on that one, but again, thank you for your knowledge and sharing that with us. And I think that we'll able to see some similarities. So if there's no questions, we'd like to introduce our next guests. And so we're here joined by Sasha Doxtator and Dr. Robert Cockcroft, who have worked together to create an Indigenous Astronomy course at Western University. This course is the first of its kind and teaches astronomy through traditional Indigenous stories. Sasha Doxtator is Wolf Clan from Oneida Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames. She is also born and raised on reserve and grew up attending longhouse ceremonies. She has come from a strong line of matriarchies and also is also a mother to a teenage daughter. She has recently returned to school to get her bachelor's degree in Indigenous Studies at University of Western. At Western she worked as a research assistant with physics and astronomy department and gathered Indigenous astronomy stories, specifically Haudenosaunee stories. She helped with Indigenous astronomy course which she ran successfully in September 2019, and she is also a lecturer at Six Nations Polytechnic and teaches Indigenous ethnoastronomy course. She is a part of the NASA American Indian Alaska Native Working Group. She enjoys learning about astronomy, space, and has many areas in Indigenous um, environmental studies, Indigenous language revitalization. So Dr. And our other guest, Dr. Cockcroft, is a non-Indigenous faculty member at the Department of Physics and Astronomy. His research and experience includes astrophysics and ancient Egyptian astronomy and pedagogical research. Most recently, he's participated in Carleton University Institute on the ethics of research of Indigenous peoples in Ottawa. The summer school of the Interdisciplinary Development Initiative of Applied Indigenous Scholarships at the University of Western Ontario and intensive Oneida language class. Oh, cool. And the astronomy and colonization course hosted by Prof. Nelson. He is also privileged to have already partnered with 4 student scholars from the topic of Indigenous astronomy. So I think it'll be a very interesting conversation. So I'd like to, yeah, you can say hi so we can see your faces or introduce yourselves a little bit. Say hi to our audience. Um, yeah, I'd like to ask you a first question to both of you. Um, when did you first know that you want to work in astronomy?
Swagoi Swagwig. Hello, everyone. My name is Sasha. Thank you for the introduction. I guess I could answer that question first. Um, Going into my first year at university, I needed a science breadth requirement, and I was going over some courses with my academic advisor, and she's like, "Oh, there's an astronomy course. Are you interested in that and all? And not at all?" And I was like, "Yeah, I like to learn about, the stars, and just because like as Haudenosaunee people that like the moon, and that's all very important parts of our lives." So I was like, "Sure, I'll take that class." And so I was in the class for a few weeks, and my professor, he came up to me, and Rob wasn't my professor at the time, but he said that Professor Cockcroft was looking for an Indigenous student to work with him on gathering Indigenous astronomy stories. And I was like, "Oh, wow, that sounds amazing. Like, I would love to do that." So it was like a formal application. You had to put in your resume. And so I was like, I think it was like in October, and we would be notified. I can't remember if it was the beginning of October we'd get notified or the end, but I was like counting down the days to be notified. And so Rob's like, "Oh, I have your resume. I was just wondering if you were still interested." And I'm like, "Yes." So that was like my start in astronomy. And um, it's just been a really amazing adventure since then. So that was 2018. I became a research assistant for the physics and astronomy department, working with Professor Cockcroft, Rob, my dear friend.
That's awesome. I think it's I think it's so important that our viewers and youth from Six Nations know that you can be an astronomer, and that we have strong ties to the stars, and just learning about the stars and how we can apply that and teach. I'm so happy that you're teaching at Polytech, because I went there and I think it would have been so cool to have a class on astronomy there at Polytech. And I think it's probably the first time that class has been there, because I've never heard of that before. Or it must have been really recent. Because I went to Polytech myself. So yeah, that's amazing. And I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
And Robert?
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for the introductions, and thank you to Chief Looking Horse for all he had to share, all his teachings. I really respected and learning from him and hearing what he had to say. I do have questions. I wasn't sure if it was okay to ask. I feel like I have very basic questions, but maybe I can ask him later.
You can might as well ask him now, so in case he leaves, or if I don't know if he's already left.
Okay.
Dad, are you still there? Oh, I think he might have left. Okay, so you can maybe ask him
Another time, yeah.
Another time. There will be another time. I can get your questions to him.
Yeah, so I think I first started getting interested in astronomy when I was very young. I think the same as a lot of people. I was fortunate that my parents would bring us all outside. I have a brother and a sister. We would all go outside into our back garden and just look up at the sky and enjoy family time together, looking up at the stars, which was really nice, and got me inspired to look up and think about what's up there. And it sparked my interest and caught my imagination as a kid. But also now I have like lots of fond memories growing up of family time together doing such activities. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably how I first got started in astronomy. And then at school, I developed an interest in math and physics. And then so when it came time to choosing at university what I wanted to pursue, then astronomy seemed a natural fit, like with what I was interested in, but also what I was good at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awesome. I think it's so important that we talk about astronomy, just because we don't talk about it like as a society, as like being a part of this whole universe. Like it's so much larger than we are, and we are just compared to time in the universe, and compared to how large the universe is. Like we are like sand, I guess, on the beach. And it's just insane that I think that we as a society don't talk about like our place in the universe, and that we are on a planet enough. Like we think that we are like above all, and that there's nothing else out there. Like, I don't know. It's so complex and so different to think about, because it's so hard to comprehend. And the average person, I guess. So yeah, I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. But so I guess that leads into my second question. Can you tell us about your course at Western with the two-eyed seeing and astronomy, and how that fits into decolonizing the astronomy? Decolonizing astronomy. So one of you guys can go first.
You want to go, Rob?
Okay, so well, maybe I can start with the title there, Two-Eyed Seeing and Astronomy. So two-eyed seeing is a guiding principle from Mi'kmaq Elder Albert Marshall, and it refers simultaneously to learning the strengths of Indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing from one eye, and the strengths of Eurocentric or Western ways of knowing with the other eye. So trying to by understanding both, you can get an appreciation of both and understand it all better. So I was able to speak with Elder Albert and ask him for his permission to use this terminology in the class title. And he said, he was very gracious and said, yes, that's totally fine. And he was really interested to know more about the course that we were developing. And so, you know, I'm very conscious of the fact I'm not Indigenous. So, you know, what perhaps an immediate question that some of your audience members have is, you know, why am I involved in this? And so I see this as I have some privilege at the university in the position that I have as an assistant professor. So how can I use that privilege to help support other voices? And so throughout the course, I've been working closely with Sasha and another student, Brianne Dera, and the three of us were working very closely together to bring this course together. But we were also involved speaking with lots of other Indigenous knowledge keepers and experts, both locally and internationally, as consultants, as collaborators. And also some of them, we had every week or every other week, we'd have guest speakers, Indigenous guest speakers coming in to talk about different aspects of Indigenous astronomy, whether it was talking about cosmology or sky law or star stories each week. So I would talk about Eurocentric astronomy, and then our guest speakers would come in and talk about different aspects of Indigenous astronomy, and Sasha and Brianne themselves also took on the role of guest speakers during the class as well, and shared, as you mentioned earlier in the introduction, Sasha was sharing some things about what she's been learning through talking to various, interviewing various Indigenous experts that she knows. But perhaps I can let her talk more about that.
Yeah, we had a pretty special course. The amount of guest speakers and like their work and the quality of work that they're doing and then providing to our class, it was, you know, just really amazing. So it was, you know, an Indigenous astronomy course too, I'd seen, and yeah, Rob he taught us about, you know, like the planets and different things. But when our guest speakers would come in, you know, we had a guest speaker that talked about the Haudenosaunee creation story and the different variations and how it related to the sky. And we had our friend from she's Danae, and she works with our friend Daniela. She's from NASA. They work together to develop a course in Arizona. Is that where they are? But they came in and they talked about their work and how they work together. So that was really amazing too. And then we had another professor come in, Andrew Judge, and he talked about a garden that he planted, and it was all in alignment with the stars and the moon. And we got to visit that his garden, and you know, our class was just stacked with really amazing Indigenous professors and people just studying you know, Indigenous astronomy, and we don't hear enough about them. But you know, there's people doing really amazing work out there, and we were very privileged to have them come to our class either in person or via Zoom. So I think it was an important course to have in decolonization of not only bringing more Indigenous content to Western, but it also like opened up some more doors in terms of the science department itself. So the dean of science, after he contacted me, and he's like, what can we do to get, you know, more students involved in Western and more Indigenous students, and how do we get them more involved in you know, STEM and those types of courses, and so we had a really good talk, and then yeah, so we're also Western's developing, or they're building on Indigenous initiatives as part of it. They're building like a space for Indigenous students to be able to study and cook and garden, and it will be on campus, and through doing our work we garnered a lot of press. So when during the development of if that project's still being developed, they contacted me and they wanted to involve stars in their design. So just thought it was really amazing, the doors that we were able to open, the conversations that we started, and are still going on, like to be here today on your podcast, as well as, we've been asked to, we've been interviewed multiple times, and yeah, we just keep talking about, like how good it is to have these courses, and I couldn't have really asked for a better partner in crime, Rob. he's he's just very respectful when it comes to Indigenous knowledge and our ways of knowing, and he really knows how to, I guess just respect things the way that they're being taught, and he knows when to ask good questions and when to, I guess, kind of be quiet too. He's good at that, but he's very humble and he's really amazing. And he talks about it himself that he's there as an ally to us, and until someone else is able to fill his shoes, then he'll step down from those positions, or even still continue to work with us, because he's become a great friend to a lot of us, and we don't want to lose him, but we enjoy having him.
And vice versa. It's been amazing working with you and Brianne. Like, you allow me to ask questions that perhaps I wouldn't be comfortable asking people who I didn't know so well. And so I appreciate your honesty and your resilience, and sharing your stories with me over the years now. I really appreciate that, and I'm really glad we've had the opportunity to work together and become friends, very good friends, as in that process.
That's awesome. Yeah, thinking back, when I think about like stars and our stories, and I know like this relationship between like allies and that Indigenous knowledge, Indigenous stories, Indigenous star knowledge needs to still be recognized, and still like we have a little bit of work to do. I feel like keeping like for astronomers to value Indigenous star knowledge as much as they value their own findings and their own knowledge on stars. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of work there, but I think well, just forming a question just from my own curiosity, and looking at thinking back and looking at this and thinking of the movies or like the stories that I remember talking about any kind of stars was Dreamkeeper was one. It kind of talks about the like seven brothers um, and the sister becoming stars, and it gives like a visual of like a story, which like I don't really find too often, of like a movie of a star stories. So I was just thinking of that one, and then the other one is, I don't know if it was, I think it's called The Seven Dancers or something. Um, is that what the movie is called? Like the boys dancing alongside like the water, and then they start like dancing and singing so much that they start to float up into the sky. That's what it was, like a visual, and that those kind of two stories like of visuals kind of just stuck in my head like all growing up basically. But if there's any other like stories that you recommend for people that are on resources. But I also want to ask, like, was there any kind of sorry, my mother's there. Is there any kind of stories that you thought were really cool, or that caught your interest of like how it's how it matches up with Western knowledge, or Western knowledge matches up with Indigenous stories so well, or like an example?
I would say that the creation of the Big Dipper and the hunters, Rob and Tom Deere, they created a presentation. And then so they show the story of how the Big Dipper was created and the hunters, and how they, jumped into the sky off the cliff. And then Rob goes in, and sorry if I'm talking for you, Rob, but Rob then shows on, so there's a program, it's called Stellarium, and it'll show you the night sky and all the constellations. And so after we watch that video, he then shows you on Stellarium on how it ties together, and how the Big Dipper, and it's specific to our origins of Haudenosaunee people, of where we lived. So he also contrasts it to, like, it couldn't have been in, this side of the world or this side of the country, because at that specific time and place during fall, the Big Dipper is at the horizon. So it really, and it's not to say that we need, as Indigenous science and Indigenous knowledge, that we need that confirmation from Western, points of view, but it's cool to see it, how the stories actually meet up. So he actually presented that that presentation in my first year astronomy course, and I just thought it was amazing, like, to be in a university setting, and to be in an astronomy course where you don't think there's going to be Indigenous knowledge, and a professor comes in and he teaches you about all of this, and I'm just sitting there and I'm just like in awe. I'm like, Western, like, they're doing a really good job of McMaster too, because now they have him, but universities are really stepping it up and involving Indigenous knowledge and stories. So that was great to see.
That story with Tom Deere and Rick Montour and David Moses and Sarah Simmons, to produce the Celestial Bear. It was a planetarium show that we co-produced. That was how I first got into working on Indigenous astronomy. So I only came to Turtle Island in 2005, but then I started working with Tom, David, Rick, and Sarah in I think it was 2013, 2014. And then this show launched in 2015, and it's exactly as Sasha described. And again, not that Indigenous ways of knowing need the Eurocentric or Western validation, but I think it helps people like myself who are trained in Eurocentric ways of knowing. It in line with the two-eyed seeing perspective, it helps bridge the gap and allows us a way into appreciating and understanding the stories that are told. So that's, I think, from my perspective, that's really what got me hooked. And realizing that, I'd struggled as when I came here, I struggled with, so how do I help with reconciliation and decolonization? And then I'm like, duh, I help with what I know best. I help with astronomy. And this is how I can help.
That's that's awesome. And I wanted to. We do have a question for both of you. So one question says, "Thank you for a fascinating and beautiful presentation. I'm curious if the recent solstice, or is this geared towards my father?" Sorry, I didn't get a clear who's this question for. One second. Oh, she said she's not sure, but maybe you can answer. So they're curious in the recent solstice celestial event in December with the alignment of Jupiter and Saturn was marked in any way in the context of Indigenous ethno-astronomy. So, and then question mark. So do you want me to read again?
I know of the alignment that they're talking about, but I think it happens every 1500 years, I think, that alignment. It wasn't a part of our course, and it's not a part of my course at Six Nations Polytech, but it's something that I'm interested in looking more at, only because we only see it every 1,000 years. So but we also try to talk about what are they called? I'm blanking. Solar eclipses. Try to talk about solar eclipses too, because those happen more often. Not as often, but more often. So we try to talk about or just gather research in terms of those things that happen every once in a blue moon, so to speak.
Mm. Yeah, I hope that answers that the viewer's question. And so I guess we have a digital story with the bear story that I was talking about. And I think we're going to play that after I ask the next question, which is, um, do you have any insights on the connection between astronomy and the water?
So I would say like the biggest connection is like between water and astronomy, and is specifically like for Haudenosaunee people is like we give thanks to our grandmother, the moon. So there's always water there at these ceremonies, and they make moon water and they give thanks, and there's a feast afterwards, and it's just a very beautiful ceremony that they do, and it's not only like the Haudenosaunee people that are that do the moon ceremonies. It's the Anishinaabe and other nations that do them, and it's a really healing ceremony. So I guess not to talk too much about my current situation, but I have some health issues, and so I've been going to see the doctor, and also seeing like traditional healers, and she said that I needed to do a healing moon ceremony, and that I needed to create that moon water, and that I needed to start drinking that in order to heal me. And it's just really beautiful that our grandmother moon, Yuki Sut, that she's still able to take care of us, even though she's in the sky. Yeah, so that's I would say the biggest connection between astronomy and water. Rob, did you have like a different?
Yeah, I guess my take when somebody says astronomy and water, there's two things that I immediately think of, and so one is that the moon's connection with the tides on the Earth. So my parents live on the coast in the UK, and so I'm very aware there they're right next to the sea, so they get to see the tides twice a day. And so having that connection with the reason why we have the tides is mostly because of the moon, a little bit because of the sun. And then the second point, astronomy and water, I think of is, we think, just as Sasha was saying just then, like water is so essential to life as we know it, that when we're exploring the stars, when we're exploring their universe, we're looking for other places that have water, because we think if we can find water in these other places, perhaps there's other life out there as well. And we know that there's lots of water on the moon. The majority of it we think is wrapped up in ice, though, because it's so cold. So we're looking for places with liquid water, and we think that there might be places in our own solar system, maybe buried in lakes on Mars. That's fairly recent research, but also around some of the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Maybe one other connection, a third connection, is that, and so this is work that Professor Sarah Simmons has done, who I mentioned earlier was one of the co-producers with the Celestial Bear. Her main research focuses on history of science, specifically ancient Egyptian astronomy. And so the ancient Egyptians, and probably other cultures too, I just know of the ancient Egyptians through Sarah, they used containers of water and very carefully controlled the rate of water coming out of the containers so that they could use the containers as a clock. So how, when the water levels dropped, they could mark off the passage of time as the water was flowing out. So those are I think those are the things that I would connect with astronomy and water. Because when you're measuring time, you're also looking at the sky and seeing how the sky moves over time as well. So you could use a water clock to measure time. You could also look at the sky and measure the time that way, looking at passage of the sun or the stars.
Yeah, I guess that would have a little bit of a connection of like the turtle's back, like the calendar of the turtle's back. We have like the moons on there, the cycle of the moons. And so I guess that would also connect like with the water levels. You could measure the water levels on the turtle's back too, deciding like depending on like what kind of moons there are on there. So I guess like I'm just thinking that would be a connection. It could possibly be a connection. There's another question, but I think from our audience, but I think I'm going to ask it after the quick digital story on the water, on the bear, on the bear story.
The story begins with 4 hunters who were brothers. None were as good as them at following a trail. They never gave up once starting to track their quarry. One day when the cold nights returned, an urgent message came to the village of the 4 hunters. People had discovered the tracks of a great bear, one so large and powerful it must be some kind of monster. Soon more tracks were found, often surrounding the entire village. The children no longer played in the woods. Men with weapons guarded the entrances of the village, long houses each night. Rabbits, deer, and birds, which villagers relied upon, had been scared off by the great bear. The people of the village were hungry, with their main source of food depleted. One night the 4 brothers had the same dream. The dream recurred for 4 nights. The brothers saw a vision of themselves tracking and killing the great bear. Believing the dream to hold the truth, the brothers set off to track and kill it. Picking up spears and calling their small dog, the 4 hunters set forth into the forest near the village. On a pine tree they found the scars where the great bear had made deep scratches to mark its territory. The tallest of the brothers tried to touch the highest of the scratch marks with the tip of his spear. "It is as the people feared," the first brother said. "This one we are to hunt is Nyugwahit, the great bear. But what about the magic that the Nyugwahit has?" said the second brother. The first brother shook his head. That magic will do it no good if we find its tracks. That is so, said the third brother. I have always heard that from the old people, those creatures can only chase a hunter who has not yet found its trail. When you find the track of the Nyagwahe and begin to chase it, then it must run from you. They continued to follow the bear's tracks for many days. Meanwhile, the brothers knew if they did not find Nyagwahe the trail soon, it would be behind them and on their trail. Just then, their little dog, named Four Eyes for its exceptional sight, lifted its head and yelped. "Aha!" the first brother called. "Four Eyes has found the trail," shouted the second brother. "We have the track of the Nyagwahe," said the third brother. Fear filled the heart of the monster bear for the first time, and it began to run. As it broke from the cover of the pines, the four hunters saw it, a gigantic white shape, so pale as to appear almost naked. With loud hunting cries, they pursued it. With strong strides, the great one ran more swiftly than a deer. Just as the bear turned to bite at the little dog on its tail, the fourth brother leveled his spear and thrust it into the heart of Nyagwahe. The great bear had fallen, so the hunters cooked the meat of the great bear, and its fat sizzled as it dripped from their fire. Just then the first hunter looked down at his feet. "Brothers," he exclaimed, "look below us." The brothers looked down. Below them were thousands of small sparkling lights in the darkness, which they realized was all around them. We aren't on a mountaintop anymore," said the third brother. "We are up in the sky." The great bear had indeed been magical. Its feet had taken him high above the earth as it tried to escape the four hunters. However, their determination not to give up the chase had carried them up into the sky. Just then their little dog yelped twice. "The great bear," said the second hunter. "Look!" The hunters looked. There, where they had piled the bones of the feast of the great bear, was coming back to life and rising to its feet. As they watched, it began to run again, a small dog close on its heels. "Follow me!" shouted the first brother. Grabbing up their spears, the four hunters again began to chase the great bear across the skies. So the elders say it is so. Each autumn the hunters chase the great bear across the skies and kill it. Then as they cut it up for their meal, the blood falls down from the heavens and colors the leaves of the maple trees. They cook the bear, and the fat drippings from their fires turn the grass white. If you look carefully into the skies as the seasons change, you can read that story. The great bear is the square-shaped some call the bowl of the Big Dipper. The hunters and their small dogs are close behind, known as the Dipper's handle. When autumn comes and that constellation turns upside down, the elders say, "The hunters have killed the bear, now we can hunt." As the moons pass and the skies move once more towards spring, the bear slowly rises back on its feet, and the chase begins again.
That was just a short digital story. Yeah, I don't think I've heard that one in a really long time. So it's really nice to refresh my memory, um, and hopefully our viewers learned a little bit also. But we also have this second question. I think it goes to both of you. Does the Eurocentric astrology come with teachings similar to Indigenous stories, or are the stars and the planets merely seen as celestial beings or objects?
I would say, yeah. Well, I haven't, it's not my area of expertise, but the constellations that are more well known are from Greek mythology, and they talk about different stories. So the Pleiades, for instance, it talks about the seven daughters of Titan, and so the seven stars are his daughters, and the names are of the different stars. But that's like if you were to download Stellarium, like anybody can download Stellarium, and you go into to that program, and it shows you all of the pictures of all of the different Greek myths, I guess. Rob, I guess, could probably maybe talk more about those. But yeah, so there's stories with all of the different constellations, and so we're trying to incorporate our stories, because we have stories for constellations too, not only just the Haudenosaunee, but different nations as well. So I guess that's where we're doing that work still, and creating our own star maps.
Rob?
Yeah, so sorry, Sasha's exactly right. Most of the stories that are from a Eurocentric perspective that come from an ancient Greek tradition. There are some in the Southern Hemisphere that come from more modern times. So you find constellations called telescopium or microscopium, because they came around a lot later. And then, yeah, there are stars that there are the ancient Greek myths associated with the constellation patterns. But I would say astronomers, Western astronomers today, use the constellations more as a map in the sky, as a rough guide to, you know, if you want to think about or describe where an object is in the sky, you can say it's in such and such a constellation. And then if you're familiar with the Western constellations, then it gives you an idea of where that is in the sky and what time of year it's going to be visible. So I would say less attention is paid to the stories, but the names and patterns are still associated with those ancient Greek myths.
I hope that answers that question the best that they can. And if any of our other audience has any more questions for them, you can ask now, because we'll probably be ending soon. But I have a question, and you can choose whether to answer it or not answer. Totally up to you, but I think it's a fun way to end. I want to know if you believe in aliens or sky people. Yourself. Do you think we're the only ones in this universe?
I definitely don't think that we're the only ones in this universe. Like, the universe, if you were to study astronomy, like, the universe is so vast that we would be it's kind of like, how could we be the only people in the universe? The galaxies, and then like our own stories of the Haudenosaunee people, like we talk about Gayeni and Guedige, like the four beings, like, and they come from the stars, and they come to us and they help us when in our time of need. So I believe in them wholeheartedly, and I do believe that there's more to the universe than I think that we're told or that we can handle, maybe. But yeah, I believe.
I for exactly the same reason. Like the numbers, we're just scratching the surface at the moment, but we know just in our own Milky Way galaxy, for example, we can see hundreds of billions of stars. And what we're learning with the past 20, 30 years of being able to see evidence of planets around other stars, that it looks like most stars have planets around them, like in our own solar system. Our own sun has planets going around it. So most stars have planets, and it's not just one, they have several planets. So if our galaxy has 100 billion stars, say, and they all have lots of planets going around them, and that's just our galaxy, right? And then you have a whole universe of hundreds of billions of galaxies. So what are the chances after over 13 billion years, we're the only ones who came about. It would be improbable to say we're the only ones. It's more probable, I think, that there's something else out there. There are others out there. We just haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, it matches up with our also like traditional stories, and like so many other cultures have stories of sky beings and have, what are they called? Sketches like on the rocks. What are they called?
Um,
Petrographs. Petrographs? Yeah. There's so many petrographs of beings from another world and the same like shape of the round disc, and there's just so much like evidence, not only like video evidence of it, but like also from our stories and our drawings. So yeah, I definitely think that there is, and I think it's a little bit selfish to think that we are the only beings in the entire universe. So yeah, thank you for answering that question and talking about astronomy with us, and we're happy to have you on our show. And if any of our audience has any last questions for our guests, please say them now, or yeah, I forget what that saying is. Now or forever hold your peace or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Catherine, let me know if there's any, and if there's none, in the next 3 seconds, I'm gonna say thank you to our guests. Well, firstly, of our guests, Chief Arvol Looking Horse, who have shared his traditional knowledge and with us, and it's important that we have people like him on our show, and elders on our show, and we're so grateful every single time any of our guests come on our show, because it's such a privilege to hear all of your knowledge and just sharing it with us and having your time for quite a few hours, a little bit of time. So I'm so sorry that it's about an hour and 45 minutes so far. So I think it's safe to say we can let you go now. And we are so thankful to have you guys and converse, and we're forever grateful. So Nyawe, and we'll be maybe be in touch afterwards. So,
Yeah, thank you for having us. We enjoyed it.
Thank
no
you.
problem. No problem. I think that's going to conclude that, and we're going to have a hand drumming video by a 9-year-old boy named Aaron at Alexis First Nation. So let's end it off with that video.
Tonight, quit standing by the door.
That video just made me want to dance, and like I miss socials and gatherings and powwows, and I just miss it all. And hopefully we'll get back to normal life soon. Yeah, so thank you to our guests and thank you to our audience for staying this long. I know it's a very long show, but it's worth it. And don't forget to come back next week when we're going to be talking about women and water. And don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And yeah, come back next week at 7:00. Same thing that you're doing right now next week at 7. And we'll be here. So, Nyawe to everybody on the screen. And Ona.